If you saw the first video on the 1973 Harley Davidson Sportster, you will have seen that I decided to restore the bike. Now, the first step to restoring the bike is getting it apart. You could tell that this bike had spent its life inside, so getting it apart was very uneventful. I'm going to talk about powder coating. The parts that I elected to powder coat on this bike were all the black steel parts that Harley had on the bike. So we're going to powder coat the frame, the exhaust pipe hanger, the swing arm, the lower triple tree, the chain guard, the front disc brake caliper brackets, the battery tray, the coil brackets, the lower front motor mounts, and the oil tank and battery tray support bracket. So I took the parts into a powder coating shop that's about 10 miles from where I'm at now. The quote for all the parts, doing it a glossy black, was $400. So I just went ahead and had it done, and then got them back about a week later. When I picked them up, I had mixed feelings. Some of the parts looked pretty good, and there was a few that didn't look good. The ones that didn't look good were the chain guard. There was a lot of orange peel on it, and also one of the front motor mounts had the same orange peel. And they also forgot to do the oil tank battery tray bracket and the coil bracket. So those two parts that they forgot to do need to be done, and the other two parts need to be redone. So like I said, I had mixed feelings about it, but for $400, you kind of expect it to be done right the first time. The next thing we need to begin is the polishing. And the reason we need to start on it now is it's going to take a while. On these old Harley Davidsons, there's a lot of aluminum pieces. So what I'm going to do is kind of just profile one piece and just show you what I'm working with and the process that I do to polish these parts. Now, the way I do it may not be the way you do it. People have different skill levels. People have different tools to work with. So I'm just going to show you what I'm doing to polish these parts. The part I'm going to pick to profile here to polish is the primary cover. And overall, it's in good shape, with the exception of a dent that's right here. The bike may have been laid over at one time, or maybe just fell over, but it dented the primary cover. And what we may do is kind of minimize that dent. There's a ridge there to kind of take your eye off of it. The first step to polishing this primary cover is removing all the black textured paint. Now you can sand it off, but I prefer using paint stripper. So what I did is I applied several coats of paint stripper to really let it absorb down into the paint. Then I used Scotch-Brite green pad and really got into the cracks and corners to get all the paint off. You definitely want to wear a mask and rubber gloves when you're doing it. Once I got it to the point where I felt it was pretty much paint free, I filled up a tub with soapy water and then washed the cover. Okay, here's the cover after it's been washed in soapy water. I think I got most of the paint off of it. I ended up using green pad, steel wool, and a toothbrush to scrub it with. And I think it's pretty clean. Got, I'd say, 99.9% of the paint off of it. What I started doing is with a marker, circling areas that need to be ground smooth. As you can see, most of them aren't really too bad. So I think we can take the small Dremel flap wheel, which is 120 grit, and hit these areas. You'll see here, right over here, where the flashing's kind of up on it, or maybe that's where it came out of the mold. And we just have to grind that smooth. And then there are a few deeper areas. But overall, it's in good shape with the exception of right here, this area. And as I was washing it, I was trying to think, well, what's the best way to fix that? I was thinking if I could hold the cover somehow, I could maybe hit it with a block of wood and try to bend it down Or what I could do too is just take that bended area out, just kind of grind it off there, kind of where it's raising up, and just kind of take your eye off of that. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I mean, I could order a brand new cover. They're like $200 plus shipping, but I'm not going to do that. So anyway, we're going to start grinding on this thing and just polish this cover and see what it looks like. These are some of the tools I'm going to be using to polish the parts. A block sander, a Dremel tool with a small flap wheel and barrel sander, a flap wheel that I'll use with my Milwaukee drill. You may have better tools, less tools, but this is what I'm going to be using. Okay, what we're going to do now is begin to grind down some of these rough areas. And what we're going to use is the Dremel tool with a 120 grit flap wheel. Okay, we're just trying to get some of those rough areas out of there, some of the gouges, some of the heavy scratches, you know, where the flashing was kind of raised up here. So I think what we'll do next is go to 320 grit, because I'm going to start out kind of finer on this because it's not in too bad a shape, and see what that does. And then if it doesn't take it down to where I need it to go to, we'll go to 220. Okay, we're gonna use the block sander. We're gonna use 220 grit. Once again, this cover's not too bad. We'll go over it with that, and hopefully that'll take it down to where we need it to go to. Here's the cover after sanding it with 220 grit sandpaper, using the block sander and hand sanding. As you can see, it's getting smoother. Okay, as I was polishing this piece, I started thinking about this hump here and the different ways I could take that out. I mean, I was even thinking about heating this up in an oven, taking a press, and right here is where the dent is, you know, pressing down on that. You know, it may move, it may not, or I may just break the cover. But then I was just like, well, the cover's structurally fine. So what I think we're gonna do is take a piece of blue tape from this point right here over to this point right here, right along the edge here, and then we'll grind whatever we can see through this hump off, and just enough to kind of keep your eye off of it so it looks straight. The cover's not going to be perfect, but you know, it kind of is what it is. And so I think that's the route we're going to go. Okay, now that the blue tape's on there, you can see how much we're actually going to take off. About right like that, just right along the edge here. All right, here's the cover with that dent out of it. I can just kind of get it straight here somewhat. So once again, we didn't take the dent out, we just made it a little less noticeable. Here's the cover after sanding it with 320. Once again, getting smoother. Getting closer here. Next step's going to be 600 grit sandpaper, which this cover right now is getting pretty smooth, so the 600 will go pretty fast, I think. Okay, here's the cover after hand sanding it with 600 grit. So we'll move up to 1,000 grit next. All right, guys, this is after 1,000 and 1,500 grit sandpaper. Okay guys, we're gonna start buffing this thing out. As always, you wanna wear gloves, long sleeves, and a mask. Okay, it's kind of dark here because it's cloudy outside and we're under the carport, but you can see she's starting to get shiny. All right, guys, here it is after the rough cut compound. You'll see it's starting to get shiny. I put the chrome insert in it just so you can kind of see what that's going to look like too. I haven't got to the final polishing compound, and you'll see here in a minute why not. If you wonder what the squares are, it's the top of the carport roof that's reflecting in the cover. But you can kind of see where we're at, where the cover's going. I just wanted to show you guys where I'm at with the polishing. I elected not to go with the chrome steel wheels that were on the bike. So I have a set of aluminum Barani wheels that Harley put on their bikes back in the 1970s. I think once they're polished, it gives the bike more of a hot rod look. As for the other parts, they're in different stages right now. Some of them just need final buffing and some still need sanded. But I think we're heading in a positive direction here, and we're getting closer to putting these parts back on the bike. When it comes to the powder coating, overall, I'm not happy. But you know what? I'm going to take some of the responsibility. I should have polished these parts before I gave them to the powder coater. They weren't in too bad a shape, but I really should have prepped them before I gave them to them. As for the orange peel on the parts, that's on them, but we'll get it straightened out. As I've gotten older, I've become a lot more detail oriented. So every time I pick up a part to polish, I'm always trying to make it a perfect 10. But these old sand castings, the metal doesn't always want to cooperate. So even though I'm striving for a 10, I know that I may have to settle for an 8. But like I've always said, there's nothing wrong with having an 8, right? So if you want to continue following along, that'd be great. Please like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.